We've all heard of Maslow's pyramid of needs, right? But what does it actually mean to live at the very bottom of it? Today, we're jumping into Mexico to find out and to explore the raw, daily struggle for survival that defines life at the base of the pyramid.
So let's start at the very bottom. The first level of the pyramid is all about our physiological needs. These are the absolute non-negotiables. We're talking food, water, shelter, health. Maslow's whole idea was pretty simple. If you're worried about where your next meal is coming from, things like personal goals or relationships, they don't even register. This is the absolute foundation of human existence.
And that brings us to the big question for today. Just how many people in Mexico are actually living on this fundamental, day-to-day survival level? Now, it seems like a simple question, but trust me, the answer is far from straightforward. I mean, how do you even measure something as complex as survival? How do you take a psychological theory, a concept, and turn it into hard, cold data? Well, it's a huge challenge, but Mexico has actually developed a surprisingly sophisticated way to do just that. And this is really crucial. Mexico doesn't just look at income to measure poverty. That's kind of the old way of doing things. They use what's called a multidimensional framework. It combines how much money you make with what they call social rights. And you know what's so interesting? These rights, access to food, quality housing, clean water, and health, they map almost perfectly onto Maslow's physiological needs. It gives you a much more complete picture of a person's reality.
Okay, so using this framework, we can finally get our first, most direct answer. This is the number of people right at the absolute core of this crisis.
But before I just throw a number at you, it is so important to understand what extreme poverty actually means in Mexico. It's not just one thing. It's this devastating combination. Your income has to be so low you can't even afford a basic basket of food, and on top of that, you have to be suffering from at least 3 other major deprivations, like having no health care or a home made of scrap materials or no access to clean water. This isn't just being poor, this is a state of profound, multi-layered crisis. 7 million. Let that sink in for a second. 7 million people in Mexico are officially living in extreme poverty right now. That's over 5% of the entire population whose daily reality is defined by that intense, multi-layered struggle for survival.
And yet, as absolutely shocking as that number is, it doesn't even begin to tell the whole story. In fact, if we stop right here, we miss the most important and honestly, the most alarming part of what's really going on. Because when we look beyond just that extreme poverty label, that's when a bigger and way more fragile picture starts to emerge. And this, right here, is where we get to the real paradox of the situation. Okay, so let's start with the good news, because on the surface, it looks like there's been some real progress. Between 2018 and 2022, overall multidimensional poverty in Mexico actually fell, and pretty significantly, from almost 42% down to 36%. That means millions of people officially climbed out of poverty. Looks like a clear win, right?
Well, not so fast, because in the exact same period, something really alarming happened. The percentage of people who lacked access to health services, it didn't just go up a little bit, it more than doubled. It skyrocketed from 16% to a staggering 39%. So you had this weird situation where people might be earning a bit more money, but a critical piece of their survival foundation was literally collapsing right underneath them.
And it's not just healthcare. I mean, look at these numbers. They are just immense. 50 million people without secure health access. Over 23 million facing food insecurity. Nearly 23 million without basic services like clean water. These folks might not fit the strict definition of extremely poor, but they are absolutely living with a critical piece of their survival foundation missing. They're living right on the edge. And of course, this struggle isn't spread out evenly across the country. Not at all. Where you live in Mexico dramatically, and I mean dramatically, changes your reality. It really is a tale of two Mexicos. You look at a southern state like Chiapas, and it's astounding. 2 out of every 3 people are living in poverty. Then you compare that to a northern state like Nuevo León, the rate is just over 10%. The gap is enormous, and it just goes to show you how concentrated the struggle really is.
And if you drill down even further, within those regions, its specific groups are carrying the heaviest burden. Indigenous peoples, they face double the rate of food insecurity. Live in a rural area, you're 3 times more likely to be in extreme poverty. And this one is just heartbreaking. 1 out of every 3 people trapped in extreme poverty is a child. This isn't random. It follows these deep historical lines of marginalization.
Okay, so we've seen the core number, we've uncovered this hidden fragility, and we've looked at the uneven geography of it all. So what does it all mean? What's the big takeaway? This brings us to the central paradox of progress in Mexico today.
There's a line from the source material that just captures this perfectly. The path up Maslow's pyramid requires not just a ladder of increased income, but a solid floor of physiological security. You see, it's all about the foundation.
Think about it. Gaining a little more money in your pocket, but losing your access to a doctor? That doesn't actually make you more secure, does it? It makes you more fragile. It creates this shaky foundation where just one illness, one accident, can wipe out every bit of progress you've made. And that's not real, sustainable progress.
And that leaves us with one final, really powerful question to think about. If the very floor of basic survival is crumbling, what good is a ladder? It's a question that really gets to the heart of what true development and human security are all about.